we have come to a very challenging part of writing a novella, vocabulary. So I have a draft. I now need to make sure I'm using my words enough and decide which ones at this level are cognates and which ones need to get glossed. And yeah, I usually try to aim for like 15-ish uses of a word, but this is my longest novella. It's 13,500. So I'm trying to figure out like what that sweet spot is for this novella. And what I started doing, I spent an hour doing this morning, and I'm on like chapter 2. I don't know. Um, I started doing the control find, 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 and then writing down how many uses of the word I have in all of its forms. So like if I were looking for Fio Fieri, I would look et, fiet, and factus sum or facta sum. Anyway, so I have like a list, double column, and I started the second one, of words I need to think about and consider using more or axing. Some of them I've used a lot, like I've used Pine like 17 times, which in a normal novella would be like really cool, but I feel like that would be better if I could get that closer to 20 since this is so long. I used Diu like 10 times. I used Taman 3 times, and there were times when I was writing when I really wanted to use it, but I thought I hadn't used it, so maybe I want to add it and get to, I don't know, 15 to 20. Um, yeah, so I have vocabulary problems. And like vexare, vex, I really liked it where I used it, but I've used it 2 times in the novella, which I know now, so I could probably add it more. But since this is also a Latin 4 novella, maybe that's a cognate. Anyway, so I have started the monumental climb of looking at vocabulary as I revise. But it is fun to axe words, so whenever I get to axe a word, I'm like, yeah, I axed a word. Hey, yeah. I've axed 6 so far on chapter like 2. So, progress. This is gonna take a while. Thanks for listening. I haven't recorded for like the last 3 days I've worked on this novella, and so I feel bad about that, but I'm so stuck. I just feel really stuck. I feel like I've been plugging away and not making any progress. I made the decision that I should try to aim for like 20 words, 20 uses of each word, since it's a longer novella. And I've been going through and I've been making that list and figuring out like what words I have not used often, which one are ones that I really want to keep, but I'm not going to get anywhere close to 20. 20 is the goal right now. And adding in some words, not doing a lot of revising right now, really just trying to identify words and then occasionally being like, oh, I could add this word here. And then what I do is I like cross out how many I have and then write the new number next to it. So I've been feeling really discouraged about that because I have a lot of words and a lot of them are not close to 20. And I'm not sure which ones I should gloss or assume knowledge of. And usually this process is hard and tedious and frustrating. And I think I'm just feeling all of that more because it's a higher level novella. So I don't want to cut too many words. But I have also been keeping track of how many words I've cut. And at this point, I've cut 19 words. 19. Yeah. I knew this would be hard. I've added a bunch of words too. I just checked to see how long my novella was now, and it's now like, it was like 14,300. And when I started this process, it was 13,500. I just, sometimes writing a novella, you feel like you're making great progress and it's going really well and you're really pleased and you're really proud. And other times you're wearing a hat and a hoodie and you've just fried gluten-free donuts for Hanukkah and you don't know what you're doing with your life except eating gluten-free donuts and celebrating Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah. Yo, so I am slightly less discouraged than I was the last time I recorded a video. Today I spent time revising a chapter, added more words that were on that list of words I made that I needed to use more often. And I'm always excited when I get to do that. Like, yay, I get to use a word more. revised for things like I have a tendency to write in English word order, and then I need to make it more Latin-y unless I'm writing lower level and I'm doing it for ease of comprehension anyway. So I did some of that too. And I've gone through the first chapter and I feel pretty decent about my preface, which is my first chapter. So I'm probably going to macrinize that later tonight, but I may or may not. I don't know. But at this point, I have at least revised a chapter and I feel okay about it. I might reread it and revise it again because revision. So, still working on revising, and for me, that still involves doing deep dives into how many times I've used particular words. So, my current approach right now is to read a chapter, edit it for things where I'm like, oh, there should have been a pluperfect, or actually, there should have been a pluperfect subjunctive, or word choice. So, I'll look at a word like nuperme and be like, oh, I only used that once. I actually really kind of need to say that. Are there any other words that I could use that might be more clear? And I find recenter, which is not what I usually use, but I look at it and I see recent and I think, that's a cognate. Definitely at this level. And now my phone's going to make a noise. There it is. Hey. And I look in the DCC to see how often new pair is used, and it's not on the list, and neither is recenter, although recens is, and it's neither is in my other book, my ELV, Essential Latin Vocabulary. So then I decide, well, why not use the cognate here? Because I'm only going to use it once. There's no way I'm going to get anywhere close to 20 with that word. So yeah, so I'm doing things like that. I also like to macrinize at this stage because I'll read it again after I've macronized it and catch macron mistakes. And then I'll probably read the whole thing one more time before I send it off to editors once I'm through all the chapters. And then they will sometimes catch macron mistakes, and I'll also run it through Voyant Tools, which is a thing I'm now using that I didn't used to use. And sometimes I catch macron mistakes that way. So I like to macrinize at this point as well. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Day in the life of the writer. It's exciting, isn't it? So I often like to write in my living room, which is where I am right now, like I am most of the time, because the wood stove is here and it's winter. And you might say, how does that deal with revising? Well, being comfortable is kind of important. Live on a mountain. At any rate, I've been driving myself moderately batty, revising, and adding words. And I have a little tracker. I've moved from my crazy legal pad because there were multiple pages, and I put it in an Excel spreadsheet. And I'll be writing along and be like, oh, I could put a probate here. That'd be great. And so then I do, and then I go to my spreadsheet and I add one. And even though I've been at this for a while, and I'm maybe a third of the way through macronizing and adding words and being like, oh my gosh, Rachel, you need to use a third person verb here. I don't know why you used a first person verb here. Beyond doing that, I'm also asking myself questions that I probably already asked myself before since I've written novellas, but things like, hey, which word should I really use here? I've used remenio, and I've used it throughout the novella, but is that the best word? What about regredior? Um, and then I'm going to my vocab resources and I'm looking things up and realizing that Rewenio isn't on the list, but of course Wenio is, and Wenio is 63. But what's another way to say return? Is Regredior on the list? No, it's not, but it'd be cool to use a deponent. And then just looking for return and then seeing Redeo, which I've never used in a single novella, but it does mean return, and it's a compound of Re and Ao, and I like Ao because Ao's high frequency. Which one's more high frequent? More high frequent, wow. Which one's more frequent? Is it Wenio or Ao, which is the better compound to use? And I went with Wenio, which is what I've used in my other novellas. So yeah, revising a novella is sometimes like that. And then sometimes it's tedious and sometimes it's great. And sometimes you read a chapter and you're like, yeah, that's really cool. Or you read a chapter and you say, I like this, but I don't know if other people will like this. And then you just kind of freeze with that face. There's a lot of doubt. And then also you realize things like, hey, I published a novella and I have 3 wrong macrons in it, so I have to go through the resubmission process to fix that. Not that I did that with Cerberus. Sorry. Okay, that's where I'm at today, and where I was at yesterday. I didn't record yesterday.
I'm not really sure how long I've spent revising today and adding more words and thinking about words and again telling myself things like this should be in the pluperfect. Yeah, I really don't know. It takes a long time. And the Makernizer is fun because sometimes it'll point out to you that you're not actually writing a Latin word. And then usually it's right. And then every now and then you're like, no, no, that is a Latin word. But then you have moments where it's a word you've never really written before and you're pretty sure there's an R in it, and there's not actually an R in it. That did happen today. Yep, just plugging away. I hope to get to editing here soon, but then I think I've been working on this for forever, and I've been working on this since this summer in some capacity, and I still have like 20 pages to macronize. And part of that is because I wrote a really long book. So maybe this isn't the best example to do the day in the life of a writer thing. But whatever. I've started it and I'm this far in. So much like macronizing and editing and adding words and deleting words, I'm just gonna keep trucking because sometimes that's all you can do.
I have momentous news, and I'm super excited about it. Why? Because I finished a draft. Like, I went through it again. I've macronized everything. I've thought a lot about the text and the story, and I hope it's good. And I've emailed all the people, most of the people who usually edit novellas, and asked very nicely whether they would edit this novella, which is like a behemoth of length. So when I do that, I'm like, hello, person. Um, and I explain what the novella is, because sometimes people might not be interested in a topic. I say how long it is. I ask what their timeline is. I ask whether they're still interested. I promise them a copy of the novella and accolades and glory. I actually reached out to someone who has never edited one of my stories before. I met her in Rusticati a long time ago and thought she was amazing, and we've been Facebook friends since. And we've been in a class, sort of like a class, like an online group. And I thought she'd be a great person, so I like reached out to her and was like, "Hey, do you have any interest in this?" Um, and so yes, I have done those things, and I'm very excited because that means I get to move to the next step, and it's always exciting when you get to move to the next step, and terrifying, but mostly just super exciting.